It doesn't take a genius to look at what's been going on in this world and realize that we are witnessing a systematic breakdown of as many systems as possible with the intention of making us fearful, forcing us to act, and making us as uncomfortable as possible so that we have no choice but to do as they say. The first and most obvious is the increase in the cost of energy. Oil and gas in a lot of ways is the lifeblood of how the world operates. By canceling pipelines, putting on new regulations on where oil can be drilled from, doing new environmental things, squeezing the American investor that tried to put all these systems in place, and then forcing us to purchase it overseas, has led to a huge demand in energy and a huge demand in energy buildup. And for that reason, you have oil prices over $80 a barrel, skyrocketing from where it was even 1 year ago. And of course, all of this happening as we're about to enter the wintertime. The cost of oil and the cost of heating a home around America will be higher than it has been in many years. And for this reason, everyone's going to get squeezed. What are you going to do? Not heat your house? That could cause more damage to your pipes bursting, obviously your health, and a variety of other reasons. You have no choice. It's a trap. Now, obviously, there's other environmental reasons that can be the scapegoat for why these things are happening, but I think it's pretty clear to most people that are paying attention that you don't have to do something in order to make something happen. You can just create the environment in which a squeeze can happen. You force all the energy production overseas, so we have no choice. You ship all of our money overseas to other nations that don't even like us, and under the guise of foreign aid or humanitarian aid or whatever else, and you squeeze all the American families. Meanwhile, you promise them that you're not going to raise your taxes, but instead of not raising your taxes, you just inflate all of the money supply by printing money endlessly, so you're taxing them without them even realizing. You can say you're not raising taxes, but secretly you are, and they're none the wiser. Lower and middle class families will feel the impact of oil and fuel prices the most, as they are required to drive to work or heat their home. They have no choice. That sounds like a tax to me. Yet despite all that, they battle over this debt ceiling debacle, complete charade. And then what do they want to do? They want to take the debt ceiling away completely. They want to be able to spend money endlessly. They want to be able to print money endlessly and run a massive global Ponzi scheme based by devaluing all of your money. Great, they're doing great. Meanwhile, by coming up with all these regulations and by paying and incentivizing people to stay home and not to go to work, fear-mongering them through all the media distribution points, and convincing them that they shouldn't go to work, or they can't go to work, or they should be afraid of going to work. You crunch up the supply chain. You create new regulations or create new rules to keep ships off the shore, to not encourage people to go back to work. You basically gum up the system intentionally. As a result, people are more beholden and more dependent on the structure. They're more dependent on the big bad gov to pay them out and make sure that they're taken care of. And anything less would be, how could you don't care about people? It's a trap. They create an environment where you can't generate any money. Then they steal it from you and convince you to beg them for some of it back. They do the exact same thing to the supply chain as it relates to housing. New home prices and new construction prices are off the charts. And then all the houses that are already built, those go way up, rents go way up. They create this eviction moratorium so that people can't even evict people that don't pay. All the small mom and pop homeowners, the mom and pop landlords can't even afford it, so they have to sell out to some bigger corporation that doesn't care about you, that doesn't let it slide. And then you're just consolidating power into the hands of a few. You're making the rich way richer by design. That's the trap. It's just a many-layered, gigantic trap. They have shortages of medical professionals, and then they squeeze them to force them to do something that they don't want to do with their own body, intentionally limiting the workforce that exists there, intentionally getting people fired, getting them removed, and creating bottlenecks in how easily people and these businesses and these hospitals and these medical professionals can produce, care for, and treat patients. They create the crisis. They're doing that with every single industry with the intention of making you, the average everyday citizen, most of whom are none the wiser, as uncomfortable as possible so that you become subservient to the structure, so that you need to beg for help. You need to beg for more intervention. You need to beg the people that are creating the problem to solve it for you. Here's the sad reality. It's going to get a lot worse. You create bottlenecks in the flow of goods, truckers, police, fire, first responders, slowed down 911 calls. Meanwhile, you demonize the possession of protection, home protection, simultaneously while also taking your protection, your public protection away. You create environments where criminals can thrive. You indicate to them where and what they can do and what they'll get away with, and then they go do it. You don't have to do something to make something happen. As you've been squeezing all the small and medium-sized businesses for the last 18 months, then you incentivize the workers to stay home. You pay them on the government dime. You pay them on everybody else's dime. You inflate the money supply so much and pay them out. Then you demonize those exact same businesses, say, oh, this is a good thing. They weren't paying enough to begin with. Just squeezing the small, medium-sized business owner, reducing the quality of life for everybody in the process. As a result, all those people that have been collecting, the lower and middle class people, all those people see a huge rise in their cost of living, their cost of basic goods, paper towels, diapers, formula, soup, meat, chicken, every single thing around them, milk, eggs, and gasoline and fuel and all of those things. So even though they thought they were getting away with a fast one, they thought that their daddy gov structure was paying them out, and I'm staying home, I'm making more. Your cost of living just went way up, your quality of life just went way down. All these businesses are getting pinched, and what's going to happen? All of the much bigger entities are just going to buy them up for pennies on the dollar, and just like that, the power is consolidated again back into the hands of a few. Meanwhile, you keep people fearful and distracted. You use the mainstream sources of information to convince them that they should be very, very afraid, that they should be focused on this. You should be focusing on what Batman did today, or you should be focused on what some celebrity did today. And instead, while they're doing that, they're stealing everything right out of your backyard while you're looking out your front window. They're doing it right in front of everybody's face, and most people aren't even aware, despite how obvious it is. People are wearing diapers over their face. They got their children wearing diapers at school all day. And despite this insane encroachment on people's basic everyday life, they still haven't figured it out, and they know that. So what are they going to do? Just take more. By creating financial incentives and forcing all of these businesses and institutions to boot people out that aren't subservient to whatever they tell you, whatever they force you to do, you create even more of a pinch on these exact same systems. And then you have a scapegoat. Oh, well, all these people walked out of the job, all these cops, all these blank, all these military, everybody just walked away. Blame them, shifting the blame towards someone else, creating further divide, which means that the intervention of some moderator, the exact same entity that created the problem in the first place, then comes in to save the day from the problem that it created. You divide people into two classes, get them to think that the person on the other side of this view of reality, this perspective, is the bad person. Meanwhile, as they demonize each other, fight with each other, yell at each other, look to each other for someone to blame, they're doing so much worse right underneath your nose, but you're distracted. Meanwhile, you try to demonize and cancel any person that's actually on the right side of this. You look at someone like Governor Ron DeSantis, and you don't pay attention to how all of the things have gone way down with no new restrictions, no changes in anything, just a change in seasonality. More people are outside instead of inside. It's going to change like that by the normal flow of nature, but you can't say that, you can't talk about that. And meanwhile, you've convinced all these foot soldiers, all these woke foot soldiers who did exactly what you told them and were nice, subservient little minions and NPCs, you convinced them to do it, and now they're fighting on your behalf, demonizing anybody that happens to see it from some other perspective. It doesn't matter what facts they have, what doctor they have, what education they have, what understanding they have. You figure out how to weaponize them against the others, keeping them distracted, furthering and kicking the can down the road, why more people suffer needlessly. Meanwhile, you take some of these three-letter organizations and you start doing what? Having them investigate parents that are asking questions of what their children are learning in school and what's happening in their schools. You're going to weaponize those agencies against them, against the parents. What about all the people that were out in the street last year? What about them? Where were they then? Nowhere. Meanwhile, that exact same agency not 1 month ago was headline news, if only for a moment, if anyone was paying attention, after dozens upon dozens and even over 100 USA Gymnastics teenage girls came out and said that they had made these reports. And what did they do? Nothing. They totally botched it for months and months and months and let all these people suffer for nothing. And how long was that in the headlines? Barely a blip. They don't pay attention to that. But now they're going to take that same organization and do what? Have them going after parents? Can you imagine the bravery and emotional distress that these young women, these brave young women, athletes, some of the most elite athletes the world has ever known, had to come up on on national television and tell the entire world again and relive this horrible experience that they have that could have easily been prevented. And they outlined exactly who dropped the ball, exactly where they failed, and no one even cared. And where are we 18 months later? More divided, constantly stoked by the mainstream media to hate each other, to label each other. You're a blank, you're an extreme, you're this, you're that. Constantly creating this divide to take your attention off who's really perpetrating all of this. Getting you to say you're going to eat the rich. Meanwhile, those exact same rich that you're supposedly going to eat or tax or whatever else are the same ones that financed all this. But no one has the capacity to read between the lines. As they all got richer and richer, what, now you're going to swoop in and just tax them? You created the environment that made them so rich. You created this situation in the first place. And again, here they are to solve it. Who did they donate to? Who did they support? Who are they financially beholden to? Follow the money. It's so obvious. Despite all this, even those who can see the truth, even those who research the truth, who follow the truth, are still fearful of taking some action. The sad reality of this is that this is no longer becoming a choice. We are running out of time. By eroding the value of your money, creating all these pinches in how people get supplied with food, water, housing, vehicles, basic life essentials, they are going to continue to put the pressure so that you become more beholden and more reliant on the structure. And that is exactly how they will continue to take everything you want and everything you've ever worked for away from you. They devalue your money, they shut down your business, they take away your ability to make a living, they distract you, they demonize you. They force you to be divided from the people around you, away from your community, and only on one centralized structure. They keep you fearful, unhealthy, hating each other, sad, full of anxiety, pumped full of products that are provided by a very intertwined set of companies and institutions that are only interested in destroying you to extract as much money as possible before you disappear. Yet despite all this and how obvious it all is, our great nation, who is nothing more than one generation away from being completely destroyed, so many people lack the basic courage to do even the slightest bit, to even just speak about it, to even just go to a business that doesn't think about it this way, to change the way that they behave, to be uncomfortable, to be comfortable being uncomfortable. There is no generation without challenge, without turmoil, without strife, without challenge. But the reality is that this is our moment. This is our challenge. This is the moment where we really have to show what we're made of, because future generations and our children and our children's children depend on it. Because these people are releasing an unrelenting amount of power to the hands of a few. So much power, in fact, that if secured properly, will never be able to get back to the people again. What people are failing to realize, especially the ones that agree with what's going on, is that there will be a crisis in the future. There will be no time that doesn't have crisis. The difference is that for the next crisis, they will have all these levers in place where they can take even more than they've already taken. And as they inch closer, taking more and more, one piece at a time, and inching us back up against a wall, there will come a time where we do not have any choice. And by then we will be so reliant, so dependent, so clueless, and so unaware that there will be no escape. The only way to solve this is to do things that are uncomfortable, and you're seeing people around the world starting to wake up. They're walking away from their jobs, which is only exacerbating the problem. Maybe playing right into their hands, but there really doesn't seem to be any other solution that makes sense. The best way to combat an encroaching enemy in this particular case is to squeeze them in their wallet, because that's what they're trying to do to you. It really is one of the most effective means of getting what you want. I believe that information and truth is the great equalizer here, and there is no violence needed. There is no violence necessary. The only thing that's necessary is for otherwise unaware people to start paying attention, and for the people that are aware to keep spreading it faster than ever, for you to vote with your dollars, vote with your attention, start doing something. Stand up for yourself, stand up for your body, for your freedom, for your autonomy. You have to do it for your children. There really is no other choice. There are risks and costs to action, but they are far less than the long-range risks of comfortable inaction. John F. Kennedy.